Welcome. If you have been carrying too much light for too long, this night belongs to your rest. There is no need to perform, no need to hold the flame for anyone else. Tonight, you are safe to pause. Let the lantern burn for you, while you simply breathe. Your only task is to soften. Your only work is to let go. You have done enough. Settle in and let the world outside fade away. You are safe here, and you are welcome. Let's begin by finding the rhythm of the night. Take a slow, gentle breath in, feeling the cool air fill your chest. And as you exhale, let out a long, soft sigh, releasing the shape of the day. Let's find a quiet count together. A breath that signals to your body that it is safe to rest. Inhale softly for 4 seconds, breathing in stillness. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath gently for 2 seconds. A moment of pure pause. Hold. 2. And exhale slowly for 6 seconds. Letting every muscle unshoulder its burden. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's do that once more. Breathing in, filling with peace. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Holding in the stillness. Hold. 2. And breathing out. Releasing, softening, letting go. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, just let your breath find its own easy rhythm. In and out. No effort at all. Feel the surface beneath you. Holding you completely. Allow your body to feel heavy and safe. Let your feet and ankles soften. Feel a gentle warmth move up into your calves and your knees. Releasing all tension. Your thighs feel heavy and relaxed, sinking into the surface beneath you. Bring your awareness to your hands. Let your fingers uncurl and your palms soften. Feel that release travel into your wrists, your forearms, your shoulders. Let your shoulders melt down away from your ears. Soften the muscles in your face. Unclench your jaw. Let your tongue rest softly. Soften the small muscles around your eyes and smooth your forehead. Your body is at ease. Your heart is steady. There is nothing you need to do. Renewal happens quietly and in its own time. You can rest. As you settle into this stillness, let's set a gentle intention for this time of rest. May every creative spark within you find rest tonight. Not to fade, but to glow softly, ready for the morning. May you remember that your light remains even in rest. That stillness is what feeds your flame. And that even in the dimmest season, one small spark is enough. Let this story be a soft blanket and let your only work be to receive. You are safe to pause. You are allowed to be still. Amen. In the valley, the festival was over. This was the dimmest season. The very last night of a long, cold winter. And the festival of light had been a necessary, defiant blaze against the dark. For weeks, the village had prepared. They had gathered wood, woven garlands, practiced songs, and cooked for days. It had been a performance of hope, a loud and bright reminder that the sun would eventually return. But now, it was over. The singing had faded. The last dances were danced. And the great bonfires in the village center had burned down to low, pulsing mounds of red. The village was asleep. In every small stone cottage, families were lost in a heavy, exhausted slumber. They had given all their light, all their energy to the festival. And now, there was nothing left. The wind, a cold, high hum through the tall, dry grass, was the only thing moving through the streets. It was the deep, quiet hour of the night, when the stars overhead seemed to be the only true light left in the universe. Scattered like cold sparks on a sweep of deep indigo. But not everyone was asleep. In the center of the village, beside the largest dying bonfire, sat Brigid. She was a keeper. It was not a title she had asked for, but one she had inherited. Her grandmother and her grandmother before her had been keepers of the flame. It was their task to ensure that the village hearth, the central symbolic fire, never truly went out. But tonight, the task felt heavy. The fire was so low. The air was so cold. Brigid pulled her thick wool cloak tighter around her. She too was tired. Her shoulders ached from carrying wood, and her eyes were heavy from the smoke and the long, sleepless night. She had sung the songs and joined the dance and tended the fires for everyone else. And now, in the silence, she felt as spent as the embers in front of her. The festival, which was meant to bring hope, had left her feeling empty. She watched the last few embers pulse. A small orange glow. Then a soft ashen gray. Glow. Then fade. It was the heartbeat of the fire. And it was slowing down. It was her job to keep it. But she had so little left to give. The village was full and fed and warm in their beds. But the keeper was cold. She looked at the sleeping houses around her. They were dark shapes huddled against the hills. She felt a familiar, quiet loneliness. This was the way of a keeper. To tend the light while others rested in its glow. But what happens, she wondered, when the keeper's own light feels dim? What happens when you have given away all your warmth and you are not sure how to find it again for yourself? A cold gust of wind swept across the village square, and the last, brightest ember in the pile flared, then broke apart, collapsing into dull red dust. The fire was almost gone. A small, sharp panic rose in Brigid's chest. If this light went out, the village would wake to a cold, dark hearth, a symbol that their efforts had not been enough, that the winter would last forever. She could not let that happen. But she also knew she did not have the strength to rebuild the great bonfire. She did not have another song, another dance, another performance left in her. The expectation to create such a big, bright light, all on her own, was too much. She looked at the dying fire, and a single tiny spark, no bigger than a mustard seed, was still glowing, tucked deep within the gray ash. It was a small, stubborn light. It had not gone out. A new thought, a quiet thought came to her. It was not a loud, brilliant idea, like the festival. It was a whisper, like the wind moving through the grass. What if I don't need to save the great fire? What if I only need to save this one small spark? It was a strange idea. A rebellious idea. The keeper's duty was to the village hearth. But her heart, her soul, felt a pull toward this one tiny living coal. Moving slowly, so as not to startle the sleeping air, Brigid reached for the small clay lantern she kept by her side. It was a simple thing, with a metal handle and small, pierced holes in the shape of stars. With a stick, she gently, so gently, dug the single glowing coal from the ashes. It was a perfect, tiny ember. She cupped it in the stick and placed it inside her lantern, onto a small bed of dry moss she always kept there. The moss did not catch fire. It simply held the ember, protecting it. The coal pulsed, a soft, steady red, and the inside of the clay lantern filled with a light no bigger than her cupped hand. She stood up. Her legs were stiff from the cold. She looked at the cold, dead ashes of the festival fire, and then at the tiny, living spark in her lantern. My light remains, she thought, even in rest. She did not know where she was going. She only knew she could not stay. She was not abandoning the village. She was, perhaps, finding a new way to serve. She turned her back to the sleeping houses and the great cold hearth, and began to walk. She walked away from the village square toward the dark, silent hills that cradled the valley. Her only light, the small, steady glow from the lantern in her hands. The path out of the village was dark. The snow on the road was thin, but it crisped under her boots. The only sound in the deep velvet night. Brigid walked through the meadow's breath, the lantern cupped in both hands. The flame inside was small, but it was steady. And even the wind, which had been so cold in the square, seemed to bow in respect for what she carried. Humming gently around her, rather than trying to blow it out. You can almost feel the chill of the air on your own cheeks. The stillness of a world that is completely asleep. It is the kind of quiet that feels vast and ancient. Brigid walked, focusing on her breath. Each inhale was slow and deliberate. Each exhale was a small white cloud in the dark. With every step, her breath and the pulsing of the small ember in the lantern seemed to fall into the same rhythm. Breathe in. The coal glows. Breathe out. The coal holds its light. It was a quiet prayer. A prayer of movement. A prayer of just keeping going. She was not trying to build a bonfire. She was just taking the next step. And the next. And the next. This was not a performance. This was a pilgrimage. As she walked, the land began to change. The flat meadow gave way to the rolling, rocky hills. The path grew steeper, and she was not alone. First, she saw the fox. It was sitting on a low stone wall. Its fur the color of a burned orange. Its eyes bright in the darkness. It was not afraid of her. It simply watched her pass, its head tilted. The fox knew the secret of the dim season. It did not need a great festival to survive. It knew how to live on its own quiet instinct, its own inner warmth. It trusted its own path. Brigid looked at the fox, and the fox looked at her. She nodded, as if to an old friend. She understood. She did not need the village's applause. She only needed to trust this one small, steady flame. She continued on, and the fox stayed, watching her go. Next, she came to the stream. It was winter, and the stream was mostly frozen. But under a thin, pale sheet of ice, she could hear the soft, insistent sound of water. Still moving, still flowing. Making its way unseen toward the sea. It had not stopped. It was not frozen solid. It was simply working in the dark and in the cold. Renewal happens quietly, she thought to herself. It does not always need to be a great crashing thaw. Sometimes renewal is just the promise of a sound. A quiet flow hidden beneath the ice. Trusting that the spring will come. She cupped her hand and drank the freezing, clean water. It was so cold it made her teeth ache. But it woke her up. And she felt a new, quiet clarity. She kept walking, the path turning now into a narrow, rocky trail up the side of the darkest hill. Her arms were tired from holding the lantern. But she held it steady. As you listen, you can feel the weight of your own arms. Heavy and relaxed. Letting go. sinking into the surface beneath you. Feeling so deeply and peacefully at rest. Finally, just as the night felt its deepest, just as the stars seemed to hang so low she could almost touch them, she passed a small, ruined croft. A shepherd's hut. Its stone walls open to the sky. Inside, curled against a wall to block the wind, a small child was fast asleep under a pile of thick wool blankets. There was no fire in the hut's hearth. It was cold stone. The child was not protected by a blazing bonfire. But by the simple, profound safety of rest. He was safe in his stillness. He was not afraid of the dark. He was simply resting. Letting the night do its work. Letting his body restore itself. Deep in the cold and the quiet. I am safe to pause. Brigid whispered. Rest was not a failure. Rest was not an absence of light. Rest was its own kind of sacred tending. She looked at the sleeping child. At the sound of the hidden stream. At the memory of the fox. And she knew, suddenly, where she needed to go. The Hilltop Well. The place where the water came from the earth itself. She turned, and with a new, quiet energy, she began the final climb. Brigid reached the crest of the hill. The world was spread out below her. A deep, dark bowl of sleeping shadow. The village was just a smudge of darkness. Its bonfires long dead. Here on the hilltop, the wind was stronger, but it felt cleaner. And in the center of the crest was the well. A simple circle of stones, deep and old. It was a place of reverence, a place where the earth met the sky. She walked to the well and knelt beside it. Gently, she set her lantern down on the cold, flat stones. She opened the small clay door. The tiny spark was still there. It had survived the journey. It pulsed with a soft red light. A single tiny point of warmth in the immense cold dark. She did not know what to do next. She had no more wood. She had no great plan. She had only followed the whisper. And carried the spark. So she did the only thing that felt right. She sat. And she rested. She pulled her wool cloak tight, tucked her cold hands into her sleeves, and she simply watched. She watched the little coal. She did not ask it to become a bonfire. She did not demand that it light the whole valley. She just kept it company. She tended it with her presence. She gave it her stillness. And as she sat, a strange and wonderful thing began to happen. The dry moss in the bottom of the lantern, warmed by her breath and the steady, patient heat of the ember, caught. It was not a great fire. It was a tiny, soft blue flame. A flame no bigger than her thumbnail. But it was new. The coal had not died. It had kinned. The tiny blue flame grew. And it touched a dry twig that was part of the moss. And suddenly, the inside of her lantern was filled with a bright, clear, golden light. It was a small, contained fire. But it was real. It was steady, and it was her own. At that very same moment, as if in answer, the deep indigo sky to the east began to pale. A line of soft pearlescent gray appeared on the horizon. The dawn was coming. Brigid watched, and her heart felt full. She looked at the small, steady flame in her lantern, a flame she had protected and tended. And she looked at the great, soft, rising light of the new day. And she finally understood. She was never meant to be the bonfire. She was never meant to light the whole world all by herself. Her job was not to be the sun. Her job was simply to carry her own small lantern, to tend her own inner spark, and to trust that the dawn would always, always return. The light she had been trying to give to everyone else was the very light that was meant to awaken within her. The festival wasn't the light. This was the light. This quiet, small, steady inner flame. Stillness had fed her spark. And her light, it remained. A gentle golden light began to touch the tops of the hills. The long, cold winter's night was over. Brigid picked up her lantern, its flame now bright and warm. She could feel its heat on her face. She turned and began the slow, easy walk back down the hill. Not as an exhausted keeper, but as a rested, renewed, and quiet light. And now, it is time for your own deep, healing rest. There is nothing left to do. You have carried your light long enough for one day. You are safe to pause. Your own lantern is safe. Tended by the stillness of the night. Your light remains. Even in rest. Renewal is happening quietly. In the dark. And it is ready for the morning. Let your mind soften. Let your body be held. Let the gentle breath of the meadow carry you into your dreams. Sleep well. Rest deeply. Your spark is safe. You've been listening to Soul Signal Sleep Stories. May your inner flame rest in peace and renewal. Subscribe to hear when new stories arrive. Your rest is sacred here. Until next time, may you dream in wholeness and wake in grace. Soul Signal. You are divine frequency in human form. Get the signal. www.soulsignal.org